almost like the Flashpoint, where it starts, one of the key matrix lines that will help shatter this status centralized system.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, March 21st, 2013, and I am Jay-Z, your host for Flashpoint Radio. And this evening, we are all over the map, literally, from Cyprus to Syria to Missouri to Washington, D.C. Let's get started, because this is an old-fashioned news blitz. From worldnews.nbcnews.com, Cyprus banks to remain shut until Tuesday amid bailout crisis. They were supposed to open today, but they're pushing that back until Tuesday. Would be Monday, but of course, it's a public holiday, so everybody gets to party or doesn't have to work. Germany said earlier that the banks were effectively insolvent and might never open unless the Cypriot government accepts a bailout. Strong-arm tactics from offshore globalist bankers. From Yahoo News, Eurozone call notes reveal extent of alarm over Cyprus. Eurozone finance officials acknowledged being in a mess over Cyprus during a conference call on Wednesday and discussed imposing capital controls to insulate the region from a possible collapse of the Cypriot economy. Well, right now, as you see the pictures on the screen, there are lines at every ATM in Cyprus trying to get cash out because you can't get to the bank to get large quantities of cash. ATM withdrawals, I think, are maxed out at 240 euros, and they fear, the European Union, the IMF, and all of the globalist bankers, they fear if they reopen the banks in Cyprus, all of the Russian billions and all of the billions that don't really agree with the European Union's model will pull all their money out, collapsing the Cyprus economy and forcing them to remove themselves from the euro. We'll see what happens, but it's not looking good. I would say bets are on that either Russia bails Cyprus out, which doesn't really bode well for the European Union, or they leave the Eurozone. And that could be, and I think that will be the first domino to fall, because they won't be able to stop that that from causing other countries to think about their place in the euro. Moving along, though, from Infowars.com, Syrian rebels caught on tape discussing chemical weapons attack. Yeah, of course, we touched on this on Tuesday. There were chemical weapon attacks in Syria. Well, this clip features two Western-backed FSA rebels announcing their intention to carry out chemical weapons attacks while surrounded with bottles of nitric acid and other substances. Of course, our government and NATO will tell you that this is a false video and that the rebels are really fighting a terroristic regime in Assad's regime. But no, this is probably the leading up to a false flag operation. Obama's red line, Obama and Netanyahu's red line, which they're discussing as we speak in Israel. And this just shows you that Al-Qaeda, being backed by your tax dollars, is now preparing to pull off a false flag in Syria. Or they may already have. Who knows? Moving back to this country, Washington, D.C., Dianne Feinstein and her gun-grabbing efforts. Feinstein vows not to play dead on anti-Second Amendment bill. I want you to watch what comes out of Washington in the next month or so, because this is what they like to do, the Overton window. They go for something super, super controversial, an all-out assault weapons ban, so they can get something less controversial, what they actually wanted. What they actually wanted was doctors to be able to decide who can and cannot own a firearm, to be able to ban private sales, to have universal background checks. So watch out. This was a ploy to get you celebrating when Dianne Feinstein falls flat on her face, while the NRA and the establishment GOP are cutting deals to take away your gun rights, which they've done in the past many, many times. Gun owners of America, a good option if you do not agree with the NRA anymore. Another Infowars.com article, Congressman fights to stop flying robots endlessly watching American. Democratic U.S. Representative Edward Markey, who co-chairs the Bipartisan Congressional Privacy Caucus, reintroduced legislation he put forth last year to ensure constitutional protections are maintained in the face of a huge expansion in the use of drones domestically. That's right. You have a Democratic congressman. You have Republican senators rallying around your civil liberties. You need to support them. If you're a Republican, you need to support Democratic representatives that support your civil rights, okay? We can't play this left-right paradigm game anymore because it doesn't matter. It's either them, the government, or us, the people. In a strongly worded letter, Markey wrote to the FAA last year demanding to know what privacy protections the agency was putting in place. In a response, the FAA admitted that surveillance drone operators have zero privacy obligations. Did you hear that? Zero privacy obligations. Let's turn to a few local stories out of Missouri that deal with our roads and our driver's license from the STLtoday.com. Is Missouri tracking personal info through driver's license gun permits? Ah, yes. Missouri has enacted new rules having to do with their driver's licenses. They're issuing new driver's license to everyone who goes in for a renewal, and now they are sending your information to a third party to come up with your driver's license. And what do? They take photocopies of your birth certificate and your concealed carry permit. A little bit creepy, but the same publication, STLtoday.com, has this. Missouri driver data isn't shared, state says. Yes, the state says that they're not sharing your data, and we know that we can trust the state because the state would never do anything to jeopardize your freedoms. Give me a break. And another story from KMOV.com. Missouri campaign aims at taking driver's license from 65-year-olds. The Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety kicked off its Arrive Alive After 65 effort with a Columbia news conference that featured 2 residents who lost family members in traffic fatalities caused by older drivers. This program is aimed at preparing senior citizens for a life without a license. And what do they want to use? Doctors! Doctors and caregivers to tell the Department of Revenue that people can't drive anymore. But of course, organizer James Stowe emphasized the aging driver program will be voluntary. Well, is it voluntary for the doctors to snitch on you? No. Yeah, so if you're a senior citizen, you might want to rethink what you tell your doctor going forward. In fact, everyone might want to rethink what they tell their doctor these days. From PC World, Google to pay $7 million to U.S. states for Wi-Fi eavesdropping. Google will pay $7 million to settle complaints from dozens of U.S. states about its unauthorized collection of personal data transmitted over Wi-Fi networks. I just showed you this article because, well, it shows that the fines given to these giant corporations are nothing, considering 2012 had Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, getting a $6 million bonus himself. But it's just to show that you'll never see this money. They stole your data, my data, not the government's data, but the government. State governments, local governments get $7 million. Are they going to give that to you? No, probably not. They're probably going to increase cellular costs or something, increase taxes while they keep this money. Your government does not care about you one bit. Not one bit. From FoxNews.com. Pentagon to furlough teachers, cut commissary time. I was talking with a friend of mine today, and they let me know that at Scott Air Force Base, they are closing the commissary 1 day a week because of this sequestration. Yes, they cannot afford to keep the grocery stores, which run on a nonprofit basis and do not charge above cost. They can't keep their grocery stores open, so they're furloughing them 4 to 5 days a month to save costs. Well, if these next 2 stories weren't true, maybe I would feel bad for our federal government. But from CNSNews.com, Feds spend $3.8 million to decrease human-elephant conflict. And if that wasn't enough, $2.7 million federal study. Why do lesbians have a higher risk for hazardous drinking? Yes, so they're closing schools on military bases around the world and closing all commissaries 1 day a week because they just can't afford it. But we can afford to spend $2.7 million to study why lesbians have a harder time with their drinking habits. Oh my God. Give me a break. Sequestration, budget talks, fiscal cliff. It's all a game. It's all a scam, people. It's all a scam. And finally, from Infowars.com, webcam abortions, the newest innovation from the abortion industry. please watch this video embedded in this link below. But another organization that gets your tax dollars while we're cutting back on other things, Planned Parenthood, wants to get into something called telemedicine, which in this process, a woman merely chats with a doctor over the internet. If the physician is satisfied by this conversation and glances at her medical records, he presses a button at his location and a drawer pops open at the patient's room, giving her access to abortion-inducing drugs. Yay! Are you kidding me? I don't even know what to say about this story, but it makes me so angry, and it should make you so angry, but it's not, especially if you're a male, because guess what? It's March Madness. So make sure you're following your brackets, make sure you're spending your money on those Bud Lights, because it's March Madness, and the NCAA cares about you. They don't care about you any more than the government does. The government wants your taxes, and all corporations and these organizations want your dollars. Turn your back on this system, people. Stop watching television. Stop watching basketball. Quit imagining that you being a fan of something gives you power. It gives you no power. It actually sucks your productivity and your time away from you and your family. There are better things to do in this world, like fight tyranny and fight for the rights of your grandchildren. Wake up, and wake up others by spreading this information, going to Infowars.com, buying an I'm with Alex t-shirt. More to come on that. But we just have to get this information out. We cannot sit on our hands any longer. We are winning. There are more of us than there are of them. But we just have to talk to our neighbors. We have to be comfortable talking to people. And if you're not comfortable, wear a t-shirt, put a bumper sticker on your car. Do something. You can't just sit there and not do anything. The time to sit on the sidelines is over. Everybody is Rudy now. Everybody gets in the game. It is your time to act. Now act. Peacefully, of course. Jay-Z signing off for Flashpoint Radio saying God bless and keep your eyes to the sky.